twice. I've been to Nepal many, many times. I met Lama Zopa Rinpoche there. That was my experience of meeting Rinpoche there, my teacher. And because I spent 3 years there, and in that period, at that time, in the mid-90s, around about the time you went, Eloise, I was there as well, probably. And I met Lama Zopa Rinpoche there at Kopan. So I have I feel a deep connection with Nepal, obviously, and our mother monastery, where everything sprung out of all the centres, where people went and did courses in the early days, the 70s, the 80s, 90s, even now, people go there, do courses, and then they came back and became inspired to start groups, to start centres. Everything is sprung um, from Kopan Monastery, and even more deeply from Lama Zopa Rinpoche and Lama Yeshe. So even just to go even further back, well, where did this all come from, in terms of Rinpoche's lineage, Rinpoche's prayers that we are receiving, we've received so much benefit from. I mean, just these centres still going, all come from kind of Rinpoche's dedication, and his inspiration, as well as Lama Yeshe. Anyway, Lawudo itself, it's a hermitage in the Himalayas. It's about 13 to 14,000 feet up elevation. And it's about a 10-day walk from Kathmandu itself. So how did it come about, So I just wanted to give a little bit of a biography, background on Rinpoche's previous life as the Lawudo Lama or Kunsang Yeshe. So Lawudo Lama, he lived for around 80 years. He was born in 1864, passed away in 1946, and he was a yogi in actually the Nyingma tradition, not the Geluk tradition. He was a Nagpa, Nyingma lay practitioner, and he had a family. He lived in he didn't live, Laudo's a sort of cave really, it's a retreat centre right now, but he lived in a small village close to that cave. It's about a 2 hour walk, an hour and a half, 2 hours. He lived there with his family for many years, and he was, as I say, lay practitioner, but he was also a householder. And he would travel to Tibet, at that time in the mid to late 1800s. The way to take care of his family livelihood was trading. So he would travel over the mountains, up to like 12, 13 times a year to trade goods for his family, for his family to be able to eat, to take care of he had a wife, a daughter, and a son. So he did this for many years. That was the main way his family survived, through Kunsang Yeshe that time, walking over Tibet in really often treacherous conditions, and carrying heavy loads, to be able to take care of his family. So again, he did this for many years, and in between times when he could, he would practice Dharma. He would go again, walking far to receive teachings from various lamas and teachers, receiving many, over the years, many initiations and transmissions for great lamas in that region. So around about his early 50s, I think he decided that his family had enough to take care of themselves. And he had received all these initiation and transmissions and decided he wanted to dedicate the rest of his life to retreat. He had many commitments from the initiations and practices he'd taken, so he wanted to complete those in the context of retreat. So he set out to look for a retreat place. He first of all found somewhere quite close to his home. You'll see later in the slides, maybe I'll just pause this for a minute so you can see me. Can you see me now? On the big screen? John?
Not yet.
No, I can't, not yet.
You just see the screen share?
Right. I see
Okay.
you in a little box to the right.
Okay, right, because I've paused the screen share. I was wondering if that would work, but that's not worked. Anyway, never mind, sorry. Something that I was trying to add so you could see me and flip in and out. I thought you'd be able to see me, but that's, sorry, it didn't work. I was trying something new with the tech this week, but it's not, I haven't got it quite right. Sorry about that. Maybe by next week. So anyway, this, the Lawudo Lama, yeah, he kind of went to find a place to do retreat. And the first place that he built, he had a lot of obstacles there, and he developed a paralysis quite quickly into going into that retreat place. And what he discovered was that there's a local spirit there, or deity, that was kind of upset. He had disturbed the place and caused him to have this sickness. So he decided that, that wasn't going to be, he had to move out of that place, go back to his family home, and he kind of got back to the texts again and tried to find another place. And he came across, it's about an hour and a half from this village called Tami. He came across this place called Lawudo. It was actually mentioned in the text. It's called the Radish Stone. So it was a place where like radishes were. There was a huge stone there, and there was a like small cave underneath, or a place where people used to store radishes, because that was the main foods. The main one, radish and potatoes, what they ate up in that region. So it was a place where radishes were stored. But he actually found in a sort of sacred text a reference to this cave, and he kind of dug it out and found there was an actual cave under this huge radish stone called the Magnificent Cave of Attainments. And he found it in a Padmasambhava text. It was actually declared as a self-created cave given to him by Padmasambhava himself. That's what he felt when he discovered the cave. So he dug out the cave and he made it kind of suitable for him to be able to go and do retreat there. So he left his family, he went up to do retreat there, but his sickness, the paralysis, came back again. So he wasn't able to take care of himself, didn't come back as strongly, but he still had some sort of residue of that sickness. So his daughter, who'd become a nun, moved up to the cave with him to take care of him. So at this point, for the first 6 months in retreat, he couldn't walk or speak. But as typical as any Asno Lama Zopa Rinpoche always said himself, whatever obstacles I have, I use it to practice Dharma. And that was something the Lawudo Lama always said, that all these obstacles to practice Dharma, including, with great hardship, having to take care of his family, walking across arduous mountains with heavy loads, to trade goods. His life is hard, the teachings, to receive teachings there, you have to walk for, sometimes many days over, difficult pathways through the mountains. So he always regarded his hardship as part of his Dharma practice. So anyway, his daughter came up to take care of him, and after 6 months, his sickness got better, and but he still had problems with walking. So and he thought that so he decided that that was his own protector taking care of him, so that he just, instead of being distracted through walking and doing things, he just had the opportunity to sit on his seat. So he literally sat on the same seat for 13 years. I think his daughter would take him, sort of walk him outside the cave, maybe to get some sun and things like that. But basically, he never left the cave for 13 years, and he just meditated the whole time. And he just regarded that as an opportunity to practice. And at some point, there was a student, a younger local, who sort of developed some faith in the Lawudo Lama, and he also became his close student. And he was the one that kind of wrote down quite a few things about the previous Lawudo Lama's life. He wrote a short biography when the Lawudo Lama passed away. So anyway, the Lawudo Lama stayed in retreat. He went in a retreat in his mid-50s, and he died in about his early 80s. So for that, the most part of that time, he was just in retreat. And but towards the end of his life, he kind of shared. So some of us have met Sherog Lama. There's an incarnation of a Lama who was a neighbor. He's an incarnation right now of a Lama who was a neighbor. He had a small hermitage about 20 minutes to half an hour walk from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And the previous Lawudo Lama shared at that time with the older Sherog Lama, the previous incarnation, that he had a dream, and that he could see that his incarnation was reborn in this village, the village of Tami, where he used to. Somebody's got a blank screen.
Yes,
Okay.
it's me, Sue. I have a blank
Okay.
screen, but everybody else doesn't, so I don't know why. Oh, there it is.
Okay, so you can see it now? Okay, good.
I can see it. It's little, but I could see, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good, great, thank you.
Are you keeping up okay? This isn't too much information. Are we doing okay here?
It's good for me. I just
Yeah.
got here though. I
You
forgot.
just got here, yeah. Okay.
I thought
So
it was at
anyway,
6.
yeah, just kind of touching on the Lawudo Lama's life. So, towards the end of his life, after, I say, many, many years in just dedicating his life to meditation, which I find really, really inspiring and really fascinating, actually. Because the Lawudo Lama was also known for making extensive prayers. He would, like Lama Zopa Rinpoche in this life, if you went to a teaching with Rinpoche, the motivation, sometimes the whole teaching, Rinpoche would call it the motivation, And then so Rinpoche would spend a long time on the motivation. Even when Rinpoche, as we know, offered food, he would spend a long time offering food on the motivation, making the offering. When Rinpoche finished a teaching, we usually knew that there was going to be at least another half an hour of dedications. You kind of had an idea when the teaching was going to finish, because you knew that once Rinpoche stopped teaching and said, now the dedications, you still had another half an hour or 45 minutes to go. So even Lama Zopa Rinpoche in this life did spend a lot of time in motivation and dedication. And Naman Chopel, his kind of closest disciple of the Lawudo Lama, said the same thing about the Lawudo Lama. We'd spend a long time doing extensive dedication prayers and motivations, to start and end his practices. So there's that kind of continuity, you can see over the 2 incarnations. It's really beautiful to read that and think about that, So towards the end of his life, the Lawudo Lama shared with another great yogi, Sherog Lama. As I say, Susie, Sue, you've met Sherog Lama, the new one. This was the previous incarnation. He shared that he had a dream, and he asked the other Lama not to share with anyone until it was the right time. But he dreamed that he had already sent out an incarnation that was reborn in the village Utami. So just to clarify that, Rinpoche already reincarnated. What you could say is he sent out an emanation. I think that's how you express it. Before he passed away as the Lawudo Lama. Lama Zopa Rinpoche was born 2 months before the Lawudo Lama passed away. So this is it's kind of unusual. It's not, it has been known, but I feel like that's kind of Rinpoche's bodhicitta, he needs to benefit sentient beings right away, there hasn't to be any gap, So, and he shared that with his sort of neighboring yogi friend, the Sherog Lama. So when the Lawudo Lama did pass away, he was actually in the presence of his close disciple. He'd actually asked his son and daughter, towards the end of his life, all his family, son and daughter, were all living up in Lawudo. And he'd asked his son to leave and sent him on an errand for a few days. And he sort of made sure his daughter wasn't in the cave as well when he had sort of made this decision to pass away. Even the disciple didn't know that. It was just that one evening his daughter had brought in some soup for the Lawudo Lama, and he wasn't going to eat it. He manifested not eating it, not wanting to take the soup. And so the daughter said to his attendant, he's a disciple, can you please offer this to, Rinpoche or, Lama. I don't know how they called him, probably Lama, So, um, so Naman Chopel offered to the soup, and the Lawudo Lama actually said, I do not need any food, but for the sake of your livelihood to be successful, I shall eat the soup. And he kind of, ate all the soup. And then quite soon after that, he asked his attendant if there were certain signs in the sky. Like he asked him, what does the moon look like? And there was a rainbow around the moon. He said, what day is it on the calendar? And he says, it's the 14th day on the Tibetan calendar. And he said, oh, very good, because Jetsun Mila Milarepa passed away to the Pure Land of Dakinis on the 14th day. And he also asked him, what does the sky look like? And he said the sky was very clear. So he was kind of looking for signs, there were special signs in the environment. And also what they noticed was just before the Lawudo Lama passed away, the spring dried up. And the student Nawan Chopel had said a few evenings before he could hear like females crying, and he didn't know what that was, but when he couldn't really understand it. He had went outside the cave and he could hear this crying of females, and he didn't understand it till what happened next, because usually when holy beings pass away, especially in that kind of holy places, sacred places, there's usually quite strong signs of either holy beings passing or holy beings being born. So these signs of the spring drying up, hearing these kind of females, it was like the local spirits and protector female deities, they were crying because they knew the Lawudo Lama was going to pass away. So anyway, after offering the soup, Nawan Chobel to Lawudo Lama, he partook of the soup, and then he sat up in what you call the three kayas, the postures of the three kayas, and started to make really strong prayers. And said, our teacher Shakyamuni Buddha, when adopting this posture, passed into the sorrowless state. And he lay down. So the state, just as you see the sleeping Buddha, on the right side. So he lay down in that position and recited Ah, which signifies emptiness, the nature of reality. He recited that 3 times and passed away. And the disciple was just completely in shock because he didn't think that was going to happen, he didn't expect that, So he sat in meditation for 4 days. And then, they said then they cremated the holy body, after 5 days, and there was snowflakes that fell during the cremation and the sort of shape of snow flowers. There was auspicious rainbows. There was a white cloud that came across the mountaintop. There's all these auspicious signs. So even some of the local villagers, because the Lawudo Lama had this aspect of being very simple, so he didn't read a huge amount of text. He didn't have great reading ability. He did a lot of pujas and gave long life ceremonies towards the end of his life, but he had the aspect of being very, very simple. He wore like the same clothes, the sheepskin trousers and this kind of waistcoat. He barely took them off and he barely washed, which was kind of typical in that region, but even to more an extent, just kind of showing his purity and simplicity. So even the local villages were quite surprised at the signs that happened at the time of death. They didn't quite get the extent of how accomplished the Lawudo Lama was. So that's just a little bit of a nutshell, of kind of, the previous Lawudo Lama and how also one other story is, I don't know how, it must have been 2 or maybe, either a year or 2, I'm not sure of the timeline, but Lama Zopa Rinpoche's mother of this life, Nima Yanchen, she was also obviously in Tami. She already had a husband, but she was very devoted to the Lawudo Lama. And, some months, I guess, before Rinpoche had taken another, a Yangtze or sent out an emanation to her in Tami, she came up to make some offerings to the Lawudo Lama. And the Lawudo Lama actually offered her his tea, offered her to drink out of his tea or soup bowl anyway from his plate. And that's something you would never do. I mean, we know that with the Lamas now. We'd never, even if they give something for your bowl, you would get another bowl and kind of take, do something. You wouldn't take from their bowl directly. So she was very shy to do that. But he insisted that she drunk out of that tea, the teacup or bowl that he offered. And so she was kind of overwhelmed at the time. And it was only afterwards, when she realized that, he'd taken rebirth and, as her son, that she kind of recognized the significance of that. Any questions so far? Are you still with me? So, just to follow up with the history of Lawudo. So it was Lama Zopa Rinpoche was born, as I say, in Tami, the same village where the Lawudo Lama was from. The Lawudo cave, again, being about an hour and a half walk from that village. He was born, this is a really sweet image of Rinpoche when he was 4. I think it's about the earliest one I could find. And he was born to the mother, Nima Tashi. And at that time, his father was still alive, but his father passed away when he was only 2 years old. It's possible that his father was poisoned, but they're not really sure. I mean, they couldn't figure out the death, but poison, unfortunately, was kind of quite commonplace in that area at that time, but they're not really sure how he passed away. So anyway, Rinpoche was born, and so his mother, and because he already had an elder sister who's still the sort of keeper of Lawudo, you'll find out about her later. But because the Lawudo Lama was, yeah, he was born, and then he had another brother, Sangi, who was a bit younger. He was born as well, and then they had one other sister who passed away. It's, you know, so she passed away at some point. So there was really only three of them at most of Rimshi's life. But you know, at that age, you know, the mother being left without the father became very difficult for the family. She had to completely take care. So they were basically in abject poverty. You know, the mother spent her whole day in the fields, either working for others. She was in a lot of debt because she didn't have the husband. It was just the nature of being in that area at that time. It was very, very difficult to be a single mother. You know, and she was out in the fields all day doing work. The kids were left at home all day. And the older sister also had to do a lot to support the family because Rinpoche and the brother were so young at that time. Rinpoche would say that he was kind of useless, you know. He just would go outside and play games. So for a very young age, he liked to play games that were like playing with drums, and you know, he would like they didn't have much to play with, sticks and stones. Yeah, I mean, you can see in Rinpoche's outfit here, they were very, very poor. So he would play from a very young age at being like pujas, doing pujas, you know, playing with stones like they were symbols, or he said they would just, you know, he would be the teacher and he would be teaching the disciples, just kind of things that he did in his past life. And he also expressed for a very young age being the Lawudo Lama and trying to run up. He would escape sometime from the home and try to run back to the Lawudo cave, and his mother would go and find him in these sort of bamboo areas of bamboo that when you go up there, you can actually find the patches of bamboo that Rimshi would run to. He wouldn't get much further than that because he was so young. So she had to go up and find him. So at some point, you know, because he was showing a lot of signs and expressing from his own side, the local lamas, a few lamas, they checked with a few lamas, and also they checked with some of Rimshi's previous life's possessions, and it was, you know, he was, you know, officially recognized as or at least recognized by the local lamas as an incarnation of the previous Lawudo Lama. And of course, his mother wasn't in a situation financially or anything to take care of him. So she had an uncle who lived in the nearby monastery and asked the uncle to take care of Rinpoche and try and educate him. Rinpoche was only about 4 or 5 at that time when he left his mother. But because the monastery was not that far from his house, Rinpoche would escape back down the road to get his mother. I mean, you can imagine at 4 or 5, you know, being separated from your mother. So he would escape from the monastery many times, come down the hill, and the uncle, you know, had to come back. And so it became almost impossible. So they sent Rinpoche with another uncle to a place that's about, I don't know, 2 or 3 days walk away called Rolling. And this is actually the image of Rinpoche in Rolling there. So he must have been around 4 or 5 when he went to Rolling with this other uncle. And there was a small monastery there, and he spent many years there reading texts and just memorizing and learning the Tibetan alphabet. That was the kind of first part of his life, but very, very poor. You know, this is an image. I'm not going to go into too much Rimshi's life story, just a little bit on the background of his early years, but we know quite a lot about Rimshi's story from Kopan times, you know. So just to touch on, because I want to get into the main, you know, showing you some of the slides as you walk up to Lawudo. But here you have Rinpoche. He spent 8 years enrolling with his uncle, and then this uncle and another uncle decided to do pilgrimage to Tibet. So they took Rinpoche at the age of 12 or around that age to Tibet. And during that time, Rinpoche, they were only going to go on pilgrimage, but at that time, Rinpoche decided, because there wasn't a lot of opportunity for him to study in Nepal, you know, he wasn't getting in-depth study, he wasn't in a monastery, and Rinpoche, from his own side, expressed a wish. First of all, he wasn't a monk yet. So when he got to Tibet, he expressed a strong wish he wanted to become a monk, and he wanted to study in one of the monasteries there. And that was very much from his own side, to the point where his uncles were determined to take him back to Nepal after the pilgrimage finished. But Rinpoche was so strong-minded that he wanted to become part of one of the monasteries, the Guluk monasteries, that one of his uncles locked him in it's kind of like this small gompa, dark altar room for a day with no clothes. Can't imagine that. But, you know, one of his uncles was very strict with him, so Rinpoche got beaten quite a lot. kind of commonplace at that time for Tulkus to have a very strict kind of system of education. So Rimshi, if Rimshi did the slightest thing wrong, behavior-wise, he was often beaten with nettles or, went through some sort of hardship with his uncle. So anyway, at that time, he really decided he didn't want to leave Tibet. It was the only place that he could get education. So they ended up contacting the local magistrate to make a decision, and they decided that Rimshi was old enough to make his own decision. And there was another monk that appeared that I was kind of happy to hear he was a lot softer. So Rimshi didn't get beaten by him. But another monk appeared and decided he accepted to be Rimshi's manager. So the uncles left Tibet and Rimshi stayed in Tibet until 59 and received about 2 or 3 years of education at the monastery, the Greek monastery, before the Chinese came. And at that time, of course, he had to escape. And when he escaped, like many, many Tibetan lamas, they escaped to, I'll just stop the share for a minute. He escaped to Bugsa, so he came across the Tibetan border in 59, and what the Indians had to offer were these ex-concentration camps, so they weren't prisoners in India, they were refugees, but India was a poor country. They didn't have anywhere to offer these refugees. They wanted to bring, because they had a lot of faith and devotion in His Holiness who had arrived in India, they allowed a lot of Tibetan refugees in. But the only places they had were these ex-concentration camps that were used during the time of Gandhi by the British. So, Rinpoche, along with thousands of monks, went down to the south of India in a totally different climate from like the Himalayas from Tibet, in this very hot, baking climate where there were snakes, really difficult to live in, very poor conditions. So many of the monks got TB. It's said that when they were in the rooms, snakes would just fall through the bamboo ceilings, So either way, he and Lama Yeshe, that's where Rimshi met Lama Yeshe, was in Bagsa. That's a whole other story itself that we're not going to cover, but he met Lama Yeshe there, and then they spent some years together studying, meditating together. Lama became one of his teachers and really his manager, and then eventually they got back to Nepal in the late 60s, and Rimshi eventually, I think around 69, he'd been out of Nepal for, I don't know, 15 years or something. So he went back with Lama and he met his mother, who he hadn't seen since he was like 5 or so, in his early years, 5 to 7, 6, 7. He met his mother again and he made his way back to Lawudo. So when he was recognised as the Lawudo Lama, the previous Lawudo Lama family didn't want to offer the cave to Rinpoche. They didn't accept him because he was from a poorer family. His incarnated family were very poor, so the Lawudo family didn't accept Rinpoche, so they didn't give him these possessions at that time. Rinpoche only got possession of the cave and all the texts and ritual implements of the Lawudo Lama in the late 60s, because the Lawudo Lama, the family had they had abandoned and left that place, so Rinpoche went back there in the late 60s. So, and of course we know from then through Lama Yeshe and Rinpoche's kindness, Kopan grew, and we've come to this point now, but he and Lama had not a rupee really, for many, many, many years, a lot of poverty, coming in from Tibet as a refugee into India. You can imagine, India is already a poor country, so being a refugee there is very, very difficult. So that's, they really, you can see in the images, Rinpoche's whole life. Throughout Rinpoche's whole life, there was, early years of Rinpoche's life was a lot of poverty, a lot of hardship. He, along with many, many other monks in Bagsa, got TB because of the poor conditions. But, as we said, as in the life story of the previous Lawudo Lama, Rinpoche used those conditions to practice Dharma, to develop realizations again. So this is an image here of Rinpoche and Lama. It's possibly the first time they walk back to Lawudo. Now, for those of us who have been in the Himalayas, we're already in, Taos, wherever we are, it's cold, right? Look, they have nothing. It's freezing there, you know. And this is how they go up to Lawudo. We go up there with all our jackets and our backpacks and our sleeping bags, and this is how Rimshi and Lama walk up to Lawudo, you know. So I thought is you know, it's incredible, really, you know. So this is when Rimshi returns back to Lawudo at this time. And this is just, you know, obviously the weather's a bit nicer there, but I just wanted to pull out a couple of pictures. We see Rimshi and Lawudo in the very early days, again, when they really, really don't have anything, you know, apart from using all this for their practice, you know, to develop realizations. So in the Lawudo Lama's previous life, in the early years, sorry, before Rinpoche really started traveling extensively in the West, Rinpoche did spend quite a bit of time in Lawudo doing retreats and meditating, you know, when he got the place back, kind of renovating the cave a little bit. His sister came up. They had the idea to make, because the previous Lawudo Lama had promised the local villagers that he would build a monastery in his next life. In the life of the Lawudo Lama, the local villagers, the Sherpas, had requested the Lawudo Lama to build a monastery, and he said, because I'm old now, I'm too old to do it now, but I'll do it in my next life. So when Rimshi came back to Lawudo, that was one of the things he decided to do, you know, fulfill that promise, which again is really amazing, you know, going over lifetimes and holding these promises. It's just kind of like shows the quality of these holy beings, you know. So when he got his place back, you know, the first thing the first project was really building a gompa there, you know, so there could be a place for monks to study. So this is kind of the earlier years when Rimshi first arrived here, when he's meditating and spending time in retreat up in Lawudo. One of the things that I also find kind of interesting and curious, you know, on the left side here, Rimshi's meditating out, and I'm sure it's very cold there, you know, he's out in the elements there and not much on. In his previous life as a Lawudo Lama, his disciple mentioned that they used to meditate in the daytime and the evening time. I think when the Lawudo Lama got more use again of his legs, towards the end of his life, he was able to walk, and, you know, it was just during the period when he was in intense retreat that he had a lot of pain in his feet, but he recovered from that later in life. So later, he and his disciple used to meditate out in the elements. They dug these earth holes that I think Venerable Sarah found them the last time we were up there. So they carved out small holes in the earth, and they would meditate them during the night and during the day outside in the elements. And of course, there's animals and everything out there at night, you know. So again, it's showing the quality of the realization, just going out there and meditating among the elements, you know, because as he said, he'd be gone beyond the need for any sensory pleasure, you know. So the mind was in a you know, high state of realization at that point. This is just a nice picture. So, you know, so going now a little bit into, just again, just with that sort of really just a snapshot of the Lawudo Lama's previous life, and Lawudo Lama at Rimshi's previous life, and just very little on Rimshi's life, this life, in the early years. This is just a lovely picture of, you know, Kopan, you know. So if you go to Nepal, if you ever get the opportunity, I hope some of you might be able to get the opportunity to one day go to Kopan and even up to Lawudo. Of course, you know, going to Nepal, if you come to Kathmandu, you would start here at Kopan. So again, this is Rinpoche. I think it's like about a year before Rinpoche manifested passing away, you know, just really enjoying what they built there at Kopan Monastery. I mean, it was just a hill, you know, with a couple of buildings when they took over that hill just above Kathmandu, our main monastery there. So this is the kind of back of the monastery here. The last time I was there was actually this retreat that happened 6 months after about 6 months after Rimshi passed away. So just giving you an idea of the garden area there at the back of the monastery. So on the right side of the image here, these two stupas you see are stupas of the Lama Lundrup, who was the abbot of Kopan Monastery for many years, a heart disciple of Lama Zopa Rinpoche. And at the very back, it's larger actually, that one, is the stupa for Geshe Lama Konchok, who is also a great yogi, who spent the last 16 of his years at Kopan, and he had spent, similar to the previous Lawudo Lama, he spent 25 years up in the mountains in a very small retreat hermitage meditating before Lama Zopa Rinpoche asked him to come to Kopan. So I was very fortunate to meet him, and he was also, to me, like the modern day, he was like a Milarepa. you know, really like this incredible yogi, you know. So these were built when those two masters passed away, and there's currently building a third stupa for Rimshi on the right side of the garden here. So this is us just all enjoying the end of that retreat there, all of us who went there. So here we have where Rimshi's holy body is, you know, in Kopan. This is what Rimshi had quarters. His quarters were above the main monastery, above the main gompa in the monastery. So if you go to Kopan, this is where Rimshi's holy body is housed. They're in the process of just stop. They're in the process of embalming the body, the holy body, through a process of adding salt. Most of you are probably aware of that. But, you know, they're adding salt to the body, preserving the body. That was the what His Holiness said would be best to do, so we can still continue to see the holy body. So the process is going to take some time. But I've heard that it's actually going faster than they expected. So Rimshi's holy body we may be able to see it completely embalmed within the next 2 or 3 years, maybe even sooner. It's difficult to know. But when you go up there, you won't see the body bits because it's inside that altar or kundun. And you can circumambulate the holy body and do prayers in Rimshi's room. So if I can manage to do this, just bear with me. I'm trying to get the little video up so you can actually see the whole room, because that's a little bit of it's just a minute video. So I'm going to try and share the video so you can watch it here. Share sound. Did that come up? No. Not stop share. That didn't work. Try again. Sorry.
Yes, it came up.
Yeah, no, but not what I wanted you to see. Lawudo put. No, that's not it. Where is the video? Oh, not there. Sorry to keep you waiting. I will try this one, and if it doesn't happen, well, no, that's not it either. Okay, maybe not this time. I was hoping to have a video for you to show you the room, but you can find it online. Just give me one more chance to find it. Oh, maybe it's here. One more time. Aha. Okay. Can you see this? Did we get that? Somebody let me know you saw that okay?
Yes,
Yes.
yes, we saw it.
Yes.
Thank
Quite beautiful, isn't it? It's quite
Yeah.
amazing. I mean, you can see this was just a recent video. I tried to get something more recent. It was on Lama's on Kappa Day, which is at Christmas. So the monks were doing prayers around there. So that was actually one of Rimshi's rooms. They extended it so that students can come in and meditate in front of the kudun, and you can circumambulate and sit and do prayers. So it's quite incredible, you know, and sometimes it's like completely packed with people, you know, because you have lots of Sherpas and locals coming and they all want to do prayers. So it can be really packed, but it's so powerful to be in there, you know. So I do hope some of you get the chance to go. Anyway, I'll carry on with the rest of the images for the slideshow, hopefully. It's a little bit techie here today. And oh, right. So you can see this is an older picture here. This is what it looked right originally, but it's been there's a lot been added to the room. So, so what happens, so if you come in if you have the opportunity, so there are a lot of pilgrimages that get offered. This year, actually, Venerable Sarah and I, and Cheryl Lama, I should say, Venerable Sarah and I are taking a pilgrimage up to Lawudo in April, May. And there's also a friend of mine, Venerable Katie, who's leading a pilgrimage up to Lawudo in October time. So I think we're hopefully every year there'll be an opportunity to go to Lawudo. And of course, when you arrive there, you would go and visit. I mean, again, I've just showed you like really a couple of sites there at Copan, the garden in the back, and also Rimshi's room. But there's a lot to see in Copan itself. There's a lot to see around the valley, the holy stupas around Bauda and Swayambhu, some of you've been already. So then, you have time there, and then from Kathmandu to get up to start going up to Lawudo. So what does that involve? So we have, first of all, you have to fly. It's about a half-hour flight through the mountains up to Lukla. So that's the place you arrive. That's the airport. That's the main airport that everybody arrives who wants to go trekking up there. And you can see, I just thought this picture, it's a very short runway. It's a little bit of an intimidating flight. It's half an hour. You're in the mountains, and that has to do this huge turn because this whole runway is just carved out the side of a mountain. So and it doesn't have the plane doesn't have a lot of time to stop, but I mean the pilots are incredibly skillful, So, and of course there's a lot of times when flights are cancelled because there's a lot, in the mountains there's always a lot of cloud cover and things. But either way, we arrived there safely. So that's kind of us, I went with some of us know Jane and another friend Steve. You're always kind of relieved. There's a big sigh when you get there. So you arrive there, and then from there, what it takes to get up to Lawudo, for most people, you can take longer, but on average, it takes 3 days of walking up through the valley to get to actually Lawudo, what it is, not just a cave, it's a retreat centre that's been built around it. And on your walk up, I mean, the place, you just feel the holiness, the sacredness of the place as you walk up. Sue's been up to Lawudo as well, so she'll remember some of this. There's the valley's just filled, decorated with stupas. Here we have carved and painted mani mantras. So these are mani stones, Om Mani Padme Hum. These that are filled, so the locals have so much devotion, they carve and paint these stones with like many, many mantras. So you find this as you walk along the valley, all the stones and rocks carved with so many mantras. It's just like holy objects everywhere, prayer flags everywhere. And chortins are like, small stupas that are built. Sometimes they have satsas in, holy objects inside. You can walk around them. So kind of that, they just decorate the whole valley. So there's so much opportunity to collect merit as you're just walking up, as well as enjoying the incredible views. So it takes so the first day you're walking for maybe like 5-6 hours, depending on your speed, and then you have a day rest. And then the second day you walk up to what we call Namche. So we're in the area we're in right now, the valley we're in is called Sulukumbu, or mostly it's called Kumbu Valley. And the main bazaar in that valley is called Namche. So it takes 2 days for most people to get up to Namche. And Namche, as I say, it's the main bazaar, so there's a lot of guest houses, there. So usually you would stay there because you already went up this huge hill called Namche Hill on the second day. That's when you really kind of peak. There's a lot of, you have to be careful there because it's quite a steep hill. So we usually spend a couple of days in Namche just to kind of acclimatize because there's been, that's when there is a danger of people getting sickness, altitude sickness. So it's good to spend at least 2-3 days there to rest. And then there's usually, these days now there's a lot of nice restaurants and you can just sort of rest and enjoy yourself, So here, and of course, so what kind of animals do you see walking up there? I mean, as you have Taos, you have yaks in Taos? What's your elevation there? Just curious.
It's 7,000 feet, but
So,
we don't have yaks. There actually is some farm somewhere outside of Taos that has yaks, but they're not.
yeah,
native.
Yeah, I know that Colorado has they're higher elevation than you, so there's places in Colorado that have more yaks. But anyway, yeah. So this is again, I didn't take most of these pictures. It was a few other people who took the really good pictures. So anyway, as you're walking up there, you come across lots of yaks, you know, and they're used for along as well as donkeys, you know, they're used for carrying heavy goods because as soon as after you arrive in Lukla, everything has to be carried up, you know, on either via animals or by humans, you know, porters. So you know you come across animals carrying a lot of goods, you know, porters. Just giving you an idea. Yes,
Yes.
pardon? Did somebody say something? No? Oh. Someone have their audio on? There's a bit of a. I don't know why my voice is echoing. That's okay now, yeah. Okay, stop now. So now here, which is you know, the other thing that you have to do, which if you're not great on heights, which I'm not, I always have to hold on to someone or have someone in front of me. You know, so in order for us the journey to be faster, especially for those carrying, you know, all the porters and the animals, you know, they've built these incredible strong, heavy bridges, metal bridges. So there's about, on the way up to Lawudo, there's about 5 of these massive metal bridges that are like you know, hundreds of feet high. They weigh, one of the cables alone on these bridges weighs something like 2,500 kilos. You know, so you can imagine. So I came across this video today, so I wanted to try and share it with you, just to, you know, getting a sense of like the strength of these, you know, I was like, how do they build something like that? You know, I mean,
That's what I was wondering. How did they get that? How did they get it across?
I know, well, I couldn't find a video like that, but hopefully I wanted to share this with you. This is all I found online because I was like kind of blown away a bit. How can they get that across, you know? So let me just find that. Hopefully I can find this screen share again that I want to share with you. No, it's not that one. Bear with me. It's this one, right. So I found this today. Someone who writes a little bit about the local Nepali, what they do. And if I can just make this a little bit bigger. So this is them carrying 2,500 kilos. One of these weighs 2,500 kilos. This is how they carry it up, just, you know. I mean, isn't that incredible teamwork, though? And it probably doesn't look heavy, but that's what they say it weighs, you know. So that's why there's about 10 of them there. But even then, they're still carrying it's still very, very heavy. But I don't know how they get it across to. It's still, I can't quite wrap my head around that. But that's just incredible how they just that together, you know, bringing it up like that. So go back to the slideshow. Bear with me. Get back to that slide again. So this is yeah, so these are, so again, if you do you remember these bridges, Sue?
Yes, definitely. And sometimes if you're going one way and there's a train, there's like, they have these trains of animals
I know.
carrying stuff. And then if you have to be careful not to get stuck on the bridge. I went and then I had to turn around and go back because there were all these zoos, you know, the zokios going.
Yeah, exactly. No, I always like make sure I look far ahead to make sure there's nobody else on on it, you know, because
Yeah.
they do move with the wind, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
they're incredibly strong. And because you're talking about sometimes there's like 20 yaks or donkeys on this bridge at the one time, carrying like pounds, you know, huge amounts of weight. So there's no question it can carry us, but they're, as I say, they're hundreds of feet high, you know. So I don't want to put anybody off, you know, they are scary, but it's, you know, you have to kind of hold your breath a little bit or do some mantras, you know, when you're walking across. So on your walk up, this is what you come across as well. And of course, here are the porters again, some examples. So this was a recent Kala Chakra statue that Rimshi had wanted up in Lawudo, put up in the Gompa. And these are the two porters carrying it. So this statue is £132 and they're sharing it together, you know. So they're carrying £60 each, but usually porters can carry way more than that as well, you know. But this is what you see when you're walking up as well. Lots of porters carrying these kind of, you know, heavy items on their bag. So, you know, you reach Namche Bazaar, and so generally you can either go straight to Lawudo after a few days, which is about another 4 or 5 hour walk. I'm just taking us on a sideline. You can also walk to Tami. So I mentioned Tami before. Tami is where Lama Zopa Rinpoche was in his previous life. He lived before he moved to Lawudo. And then in this life, it's the village where Rinpoche was reborn. And this is the birth house where he was reborn. And this is very typical, the top one, which I was lucky to be able to see. That was still like this up until about 2019-20 when they renovated it to be more like the sort of modern house village now in Tami, like that. It was renovated after the earthquake, even though this is also after the earthquake in 2015. Rimshi's house wasn't damaged in the earthquake, but they anyway they renovated it because Rimshi was supposed to be coming up there around 2021-22, but because of COVID, it was cancelled, you know. So they renovated it so that Rimshi could stay there a night. But unfortunately, Rimshi he didn't get there, you know. So but as you can see, this is the previous house. So usually in a typical Sherpa house, the family live on the top and the animals live on the bottom. And as I say, when I first went to Lawudo in 2017, I was able to see this lady was a sort of caretaker of the house. Nobody was living in there. But she took us in, you know, and we were able to see the house. And I think, to be honest with you, it's not really any different from how Rimshi would have been living in it. I mean, Rimshi's family were very poor, so they wouldn't have had a lot of extra items in there, you know, apart from more maybe pots, pans for cooking. But I think they didn't have much money, so I think it would have been very basic. I mean, Rimshi says Rimshi would often talk a little bit about his life story, you know, the earlier parts of his life when he was teaching, and he doesn't really remember his father. What he remembered about his father was that all the kids would sleep under his furs, you know, his tuba at night. It was lined with animal fur, and they would say that you know, this belonged to our father. You know, that's kind of how they remembered their father, because they all would sleep next to the stove or the fire at night time, under the father's tuba. So yeah, so this is, you know, very, very basic, very simple. So when you go to Tami, as I say, there's a lot to see there now. So there's Rimshi's birth house, and so because it's been renovated, you can actually go up, and the new renovation and do on the top part, it's always open if students come to go up there and do prayers. There's a small gompa on the top now, so you can sit in there and do some prayers. And the other thing that happened in Tami, there's a few stupas around, sort of dotted on the outskirts of Tami. Actually, maybe I'm wrong about, I mean, quite far away from Tami, there's one other stupa. There was one main stupa on Tami that was again destroyed, completely damaged in the earthquake. So the Sherpas in Tami, this was in 2015, the earthquake. So the Tami Sherpas requested Rinpoche to help them rebuild the stupa. So, of course, Rinpoche built something even more magnificent and marvelous. You know, Rinpoche commissioned this, along with, of course, the manager at Kopan, Tempa Chodin. He's incredible, you know, who manages a lot of Rinpoche's projects in this region, in the Khumbu region. And, of course, Rinpoche, you know, sponsored and raised all the money for the project. But this stupa here, that's very similar to the Bodha stupa, was rebuilt. And it's you can sort of get a sense of the size of it there, you know. And the villagers were just kind of overjoyed, you know, that they rebuilt the stupa. And so it was built and finished around, I think, 2019, 20. And of course, Rimshi was invited to come up and consecrate it, but he had to consecrate it from Kopan because it was during the times of COVID. So again, Rinpoche was never able to make it there. He didn't make it there to actually see the stupa. He consecrated it for Kopan. So at that time, the Sherpas, out of their appreciation for Rinpoche, they composed a song to thank Rinpoche. So we're going to, if there's enough time, I want to play it at the end, because they changed it into a, they thanked Rinpoche for building the stupa, rebuilding the stupa, but they also changed it into a song for his swift return. So it's very sweet, you know. So if we've got a few minutes at the end, we'll try and even just play a few minutes of it. So you can see that in Tami. Lama Zopa Rinpoche's sister, who you'll see an image of soon, she commissioned this prayer wheel. She always wanted to build a prayer wheel in Tami, which is next to the house that she was born in, the family house. And it's dedicated to her mother, father, Rinpoche, and it has 100 trillion mantras inside. So you can also visit that when you're in Tami. So there's quite a few things to do there, just to go there and honor and be in the place where Rinpoche was born. You know, it's very special. And this is an image of inside the prayer wheel. Venerable Roger's attendant came up there just around the time I was there, a year past November, and saw the new prayer wheel as well. Also in Tami, there's an ancient monastery. Sue, did you go to Tami when you were there?
No,
No?
I made it
Okay,
there.
well, next time.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Tami, there was a huge flood in Tami a few months ago, maybe around, I think it was about April last year, in the monsoon, around about July, August. So a lot of the village got severely damaged.
Are you going in April to Tommy?
Well, it depends because of the floods. We have to see if there's a pathway that we can get there.
Mhm.
And the guest house that we would normally stay in was also damaged severely with the floods. Rinpoche's birth house was not, the prayer wheel wasn't, the stupa was okay, and Tami Monastery, because that's up at a higher elevation, it's above Tami village, so that was also not destroyed, and the villagers actually sought refuge there after the floods for some weeks. They stayed there, you know, because their village was, you know, most of the houses were destroyed. It was very, very sad, you know, so I'm not really sure what's happening with the rebuilding of that, how possible it is, because it was quite extensive damage. But we're certainly, I think the plan is to go there for sure if we can.
Mhm.
So this is an ancient monastery here, one of the oldest in the Khumbu region. And it was founded by, so you can also visit that, you know, if you go to Tami. It was founded by this great master, Lama Ropa Dorje. And he had such powers that he was able to twist an iron rod with his bare hand. So that's what it talks about in the text, you know, the power of his realization, you know. So there's still around about, I mean, 30, 40 monks there. There's a young Tami Lama, reincarnation of the previous Tami Lama. He's there studying at the moment. So it's also very wonderful to go up there. And that was the first place when Rinpoche's mother first sent him off to be educated with his uncle. That's the first place Rinpoche went to, was Tami Gompa. But because he kept running away from there, his mother and uncle decided that he had to go further away, you know, to really be able to focus on his studies. So that Rinpoche also spent a bit of time there as well. So then after Tami, you would take about an hour and a half walk to go and visit Lawudo. And really the keeper of Lawudo is Rinpoche's sister, Nawan Samden. She's the older sister. She's in her early 80s now. And she's been, you know, central to the whole development. I mean, she's been there for 50 years, you know, taking care of Lawudo from the very early days. She's like the heart of Lawudo, you know. And she, you know, and she always says so difficult in the early years. I mean, they had nothing. Everything had to be carried up, you know. So, and also they had some young monks there. Once they built the Gompa, the Rinpoche's first project was to build the Gompa that you'll see a picture of next. After that, they started to have some young monks coming up, and Rinpoche's sister took care of all the young monks. I mean, she was like the mother for all these young monks, cooking for them, cleaning. I mean, she didn't educate them. They had someone else to do that. She said she used to sleep in the same room with all the young monks, and they would pee in the middle of the night. I think someone's Okay, good. So they would, sort of pee. She says, oh, so difficult. She would have to get up in the middle of the night. She didn't get much sleep and then all day working. So incredible sweat, her sweat, everything's in that place, I mean, she's just put so much, and she still works all day. She's still got her apron on at 80, working all day. So, and she also has so many funny stories, of Westerners when we come up there. She remembers a lot, so she shares a lot of stories as well. So it's very precious if you're able to go up there and be there at a time when she's still there, because I mean she's already in her 80s, and she has similar features, similar characteristics to Rinpoche, just because they're siblings, they look very similar. And at night time, she also has a copy of the Vajrakuta Sutra, the sutra that explains emptiness. She recites that, and that's actually from the previous Lawudo Lama. So she sits around the fire at night reading the Vajrakuta Sutra. So this is the Gompa. This is the first building that was actually overseen and built by, not physically built by Rinpoche, but Rinpoche was kind of overseeing the building of it, supervising it. He was in charge of it, and collecting the funds and the money, and supposedly supervising the workers. But as Rinpoche says in his own words, he would be meditating in the cave. Rinpoche wasn't really the type to come out and sort of point the finger and tell them to get back to work. So they knew that Rinpoche was kind of soft. So he said he would often see them like drinking tea and hanging out and doing whatever they were doing, drinking chang, the potato alcohol up there when they were supposed to be working. But it did eventually get built. So this is the beautiful Gompa. And then there's just a sort of view from the other side, so you can see, I mean, how it's stunning, it just overlooks the whole valley there. Some of the views. So the next few pictures, I'm just kind of giving you some views of what it looks like when you get up to Lawudo, So you have the main Gompa there. I didn't add any pictures of inside the Gompa, but there's some incredible statues of Padmasambhava, Guru Rinpoche. The plan is to actually make it a Guru Rinpoche Pure Land. So they're going to build over the years there are retreat rooms there. They're very simple, so I think the plan is to make it a little bit more comfortable, I guess, for Westerners, for Easterners to go up there, So they're going to be building more retreat cabins up there that are a little bit more comfortable for people. The accommodations are quite simple right now, which in many ways is good too, but they are building it into more of a bigger complex, so it can hopefully appeal to a wider variety of people who may want to spend more time there in retreat. So this is as you say, the views from the main Gompa. This is, I think, this image is the last time Rinpoche went up to Lawudo just before the earthquake, which I thought was kind of interesting. Lawudo did have some damage for the earthquake, which they've managed to rebuild from now. But this is Rinpoche blessing your cows. So, it's a little bit like a farm up there as well. It's like a retreat centre with a farm on the side. Rinpoche, because, there's a big garden there. We have cows. The Rinpoche milks the cows. There's calves. Rinpoche's main sister's main job is taking care of the baby cows, and they've also been able to develop a really nice vegetable garden there. So there was not really any vegetables in the past apart from radish, and the radish are quite strong. They don't really fit for Westerners. So they were able to build this special at the back, some vegetable gardens. So when I was there for 6 weeks, I mean, we had vegetables most days, so quite fortunate. And so Rinpoche's sister takes care of that as well. And Rinpoche's advice, the last time he was there, is to circumambulate the cows around the Gompa every day. So that's one of the jobs that they try to do, is take the cows and the calves around the Gompa every day for their purification, their enlightenment. This is also Rinpoche's sister asking, Rinpoche's sister, the cows, the baby calves are like her babies, So there's a couple of calves there. And this is Rinpoche's childhood playmate, Nawan Nyendag. He's a monk. And Rinpoche's sister asks him periodically to come and do pujas for the cows. I think it's so sweet, So he lives in Tami. I was able to visit. He invited us to his house the last time. He doesn't speak much English, but we wanted to see the Lawudo he holds. So in his previous life, I don't know if you really remember the statue, but the Lawudo Lama's wearing this lotus hat in the statue. So this is the actual hat that the Lawudo Lama always wore. You know, he never took it off. And this is a kind of sign of a Nyingma practitioner, you know, a Nagpa, a yogi, you know. So he wore that all, you know, he basically didn't take it off. So he's currently holding the the keeper of the Lawudo Lama's hat. Rimshi's uncle, I made this slideshow before Rimshi's uncle had passed, but he passed a few months ago. He was around 98, 99. He spent the last, I think, maybe 15, 20 years of his life or more living in Lawudo, living in a very small, simple room. I mean, it must be so cold in the winter time. When we get up there, Rimshi's sister would ask us to bring lots of hot water bottles for him as he was aging. He needed a lot of heat throughout the day. And what's inspiring about his life story is because he was the youngest son in a family, you know, many siblings, it was his job to take care of the mother. It always falls to the youngest one, I think, in the Sherpa culture, you know. So he had to take care of his mother, but he was a monk and he wanted to complete his nundros. So he found a very small hermitage. He sort of built this very small cave or hermitage, and he did his nundros while he took care of his aging mother, who was also blind, cooking for her, you know, whatever she needed. And he did his prostrations. So what does that mean? He did 4 times each. So he did 400,000 prostrations, 400,000 Vajrasattva, 400,000 Guru Yoga, and 100,000 mandala offering while he took care of his mother. So I thought that was incredibly inspiring. And he was also very central in the development of building Lawudo as a retreat centre, you know, helping build the gompa and the houses. He did a huge amount. So I was lucky. I met him a couple of times when I was up there, and he would just do mantras all day. The couple of times I was there, I happened to be in the room next to him, and he was like my alarm clock. I mean, he would get up before me because I would hear him recite mantras around 4:30 in the morning. And I thought, wow, this is really incredible. I'm still in bed, kind of cold, and I don't know how up he was. I don't know if he was really sitting up in bed, but he was already awake, and you could hear him reciting mantras through the wall. So the devotion of that generation is just really very incredible, you know. So sometimes on the other type of animals you see are Himalayan wild goats. So if I show you this next slide, this is the Lawudo Lama stupa, that they built when the Lawudo Lama passed away, Rimshi's previous incarnation. So it was actually destroyed it was damaged during the earthquake. So they had to rebuild it. So when they rebuilt it, they were painting it, trying to get it ready at a certain time, and to help dry the paint quicker, they put salt on the paint. So it wouldn't, because if you're doing it during the monsoon, you want it to dry quickly so that, you know, rain doesn't come and just take the paint off. So they put salt on the stupa to have it dry quicker. So the goats were coming up and licking off the salt. So that was quite interesting. They were eating the salt off the stupa. So this is an image. So what else do you see at Lawudo? You see the beautiful Gompa, Rimshi's sister, the previous Lawudo Lama stupa, which was again fell down and it was rebuilt, reconstructed. So again, this is another feat. You know, this is right on the edge of the cliff. You can't circumambulate that because you would fall off down the cliff. So you can imagine building that. It's quite the feats that they accomplish up there with building things is just unbelievable, considering they're very little, you know. So, and everything has to be carried up. So this is a beautiful place, as you can see. The view's stunning. There's a nice piece of ground there, grass ground, you know, that you can sit on. And I used to enjoy going there and doing meditations in the sort of late afternoon. It's really beautiful to sit there when the sky's all clear and you can enjoy that. So you can't circumambulate, but you can sit and do some prayers at the side of the stupa. This is so the really heart of Lawudo, the main part of Lawudo is the cave, of course. So this is a cave in the early days when Rimshi just got back to Lawudo with his sister. So you can see, very simple, you know, look at the table Rimshi's eating his lunch on. I mean, we'd never offered a table like that Rimshi now, you know, but this is all they had then. You can see even the outside of the cave is all quite simple. compared to what the cave looks like now. This is it being kind of redone, renovated, built up a little bit. They've built these extra buildings here now on the side. And again, you can see the stunning views coming off the side there. And you see the cave is literally under a rock. You know, it's sitting right underneath a rock, and the rock's right on top of it. So this is the cave and the beautiful sitting area on the outside of the cave. And this is a nice picture of Venerable Sarah that we took. She was doing some retreat up there at the time. So inside the cave looks like this, and it's very small. This is really taken from the door almost. But, you know, look how elaborate it is now. But it's still got the rock's still right on the top of it. But they built this beautiful altar. So on the left side here, you can see these statues. This is Guru Rinpoche, Padmasambhava in the center, and there's two female students, the two disciples, Mandarava and Yeshisogal. And these three statues belong to the previous Lawudo Lama. And when Rinpoche came back the first time to Lawudo, Rinpoche's sister said that they were completely black because someone else had used the cave when it was empty for a while. They'd used it to do retreat and lit fires in the cave. So all the smoke, they were completely covered in smoke. So they had to kind of really clean them down and kind of bring them back to life. So they're looking very beautiful there. There's also a stupa there. And that stupa holds the relics of the previous Lawudo Lama and some other holy objects as well. And this is, of course, where Rinpoche sits, you know, when he's doing meditation. And there's a picture of myself and another monk who were there at the time. So this is kind of just, you know, the length. This is basically the length of the cave. I mean, you can get maybe 10, 12 people really tightly in there if you wanted to. It's more comfortable with 5 or 6, but you could get that amount of people in there. And, you know, it's said when, you know, it's a precious cave. So at the time from time to time, nectar drips from the top of the cave and they do collect it. So if you're fortunate and the nectar's been dripping, you can actually have some of the nectar. But it says when the Lawudo Lama passed away that the nectar was dripping quite strongly, you know, when he was in meditation after passing. And this is a picture of Rinpoche, I think, as well, the last time Rinpoche was there in the cave. You know, you can see it's like really beautiful, well, Rinpoche's texts and everything like that there as well. So what else can you see up there? I'll have to move it along a little bit. Rinpoche's Holy Tooth Relic, that arrived. So I was there, again, a year past November, and they had this, they consecrated they had this celebration. It was the Labab Dupchen. It was a special day in the Buddhist calendar. So Venerable Roger came up and many people, and that's why I went up there to stay at that time, because this is a Holy Tooth Relic of Rinpoche's. It's also, they brought up at that time, Venerable Roger brought it. And Rinpoche's sister wants to build a special kind of shrine to encase it. So this will always be there. So this is another, you know, holy relic of Rinpoche's that will always abide in Lawudo, you know, and make it another place, another reason to go and do pilgrimage there to see the Holy Tooth Relic. And Rinpoche's sister, a few months after Rinpoche manifested passing away, commissioned the building of a stupa. And the stupa is just below the main Lawudo Retreat Centre. It's just about a 10-minute walk from the centre, just below, again, jutting out all over the valley. But this time you can actually circumambulate it. You see, there is a circumambulation path, so you're able to go around and circumambulate. So this was the first stupa that was built. You know, it's very auspicious to build stupas after your Lama, your teacher, passes away. So this was the first one that was built by Rinpoche's sister, you know, after Rinpoche manifested passing away. So I felt very fortunate to be there. And the monks from the Tami monastery, the one that we saw pictures of earlier, they came there to consecrate the stupa. So it was a very special day. Venerable Roger was there. So that you can also go there and spend time circumambulating. You see the views just absolutely stunning around there as well. There's just some more pictures of the monks consecrating the stupa. And one other thing that was done there to fulfill Rinpoche's wishes, that Rinpoche always wanted, there's a huge rock face called Drak Karma, a white cliff rock, that's about a half-hour walk behind Lawudo, behind and up. And Rinpoche for many years wanted a huge image of Chenrezig, the Buddha Compassion, painted there so that the whole valley could see it, you know, for imprints on the mind. But Rinpoche later decided on another deity called Amogapasha. And that's the deity that by seeing it purifies like so much karma, you know, so many benefits. Rinpoche's requested the centers to put it up in their center for individuals, all this stuff in our house, just by looking at it as this powerful way to purify the mind. So again, you can see here like what these artists, so I was there when the artists arrived, none of them, they were all tanka painters. None of them had done anything like this before. The image itself's 30 feet high, but the rock face is even higher, you know. So they were like at the top of the rock face. So they were like, you know, 30, 40, 50, I don't know, 100, it seemed like really, really high up on very kind of slim. It took, you know, they had to get all the scaffolding up the hill. You can see they're on scaffolding. They're all just on wooden planks there. I mean, when I went up to see them, I was getting afraid just watching them. So you can see they don't have like ropes on or anything like that. But out of their devotion to Rinpoche, that they wanted to build that, you know, they wanted to paint this and dedicate it for Rinpoche's swift return. So it was quite incredible, you know. So that was also consecrated, and you can see that when you're walking up to Lawudo because it's so far away, you know. So this is something else you can walk up to and see. You can see it from a distance, and it's just kind of mind blowing, you know, to really rejoice in the efforts and kind of the fearlessness of the people there, you know, to really imprint the valley with these devotional objects for us, you know, to also enjoy as well. And just a couple other images. This is the kitchen. You know, again, this kitchen, this Rinpoche's sister used to cook for many years just with a fire, you know. So recently some Westerners about 5-6 years ago offered this stove, which again, very, very heavy, but they had to be carried up, but it makes the cooking easier. But this is the kind of typical Sherpa kitchen here.
What's the fuel in the stove?
It's still
The dung?
yeah, dung and, you know, sticks and, you know, mostly I think like dung and sticks and things like that. So yeah, they do have some gas over here. You see on that side, they have gas, but they don't use it much. They just use a certain amount, you know, because they have to bring the canisters in. But yeah, I think it's a lot of dung, and yeah, they have one person there that has to collect all that fuel, you know, it's a huge work. So that's Sherpa kitchen. This is just momos, you know, typical sort of, well, it's more Tibetan food momos really, but we were having, this is the main dining area. So if you know, stay there, you would have your room, and then we come and congregate here for meals, and there's one main, this is the only source of heat apart from in the kitchen. There's this source of heat here around, and we would all congregate in the evening around the stove, and they usually put the stove on here for Westerners so we can heat up a little bit in the evening. And just some more views, you know, you can see these are from the retreat houses themselves, the retreat rooms at Lawudo. You can see some of the views you would enjoy from the retreat rooms. These are the retreat rooms along the right here, and you see it's just all out facing, everything's facing the valley. So you have incredible views. There's like 2 levels of retreat rooms. There's lower and higher. So this is the higher ones as well up here. And, you know, sometimes the cloud formations again are just all incredible, you know, I mean, being up there. This is just below Lawudo, Mende. So Japanese, this is a large hotel that was built by Japanese. It's closed at the moment. Cost $200 a night for a night there. I think it was for like occasional tourists. But right now they're having some problems, so it's closed. But yeah, these are all the fields, the potato fields here that they grow potatoes in, that actually feed us up there in Lawudo, you know. So they all have to be carried up and down the hill. It's about a half-hour walk up and down carrying potatoes and growing potatoes all down here. Some more stunning views that you can just enjoy for Lawudo down the valley. Sunset views, incredible, you know. So that's just kind of in a nutshell, you know, what you would expect. A little bit of an idea to show you how you would, you know, what would happen if you went up to Lawudo. What would you expect to see come across? This is once you get back down, maybe you'd have a visit to the nunnery. This is the nunnery here with a couple of rainbows hanging over high. So you saw a little bit of the monastery. This is the nunnery as well. It's about a 20-minute walk from the Kopan monastery.
And now we're back in Kathmandu.
Yeah, now we're back in Kathmandu, sorry,
I
because we're
just want
also
to say
running out of
something.
time.
Can I say something about the mountains?
Yeah, please do, Sue.
Um,
Share.
It's such a feeling when you're in the mountains. It's like a beautiful view for visual, but it's more than that. It's like the air is so, like it seems so fresh, like the freshest air you could ever breathe. It seemed to me. And you're in the mountains. It's like a feeling, not just with one sense. It's like all your senses. It's just a whole, it's like another reality there.
It is, yeah.
But,
I mean, we've all experienced being in the mountains, I guess, as well, but it's also because of the power of the place, you know, it's like
yeah,
all these beings who have had realizations there, you know.
yeah,
That's what also makes it's not just being in the mountains, it's like the power of the holy objects, the devotion of the people,
yeah.
you know, it's just incredible. And there are other places like that in the world, of course, as well. And this is just another example of it, especially as a Tibetan Buddhist, you know. To a Buddhist practitioner to go there and be in a place where Buddhists have, you know, these great yogis have achieved realizations. It's
And
very
it's
important.
higher than most places. 14,000 feet is higher
Yeah,
than
it's
most
very high as well.
places.
So the air's very, very thin. You feel that, you know, that
Yeah,
it's got a spirituality to it as well because of the thinness of the air.
yeah.
So yeah, it's quite incredible. It's really special. I just wanted to share a couple of things and then we'll try and maybe there's, you know, if anyone has a couple of questions as well. I just wanted, yeah, just to finish off with, you know, where Rinpoche just kind of saying that, you know, really, I'm here, sorry. At the end of his life, Rinpoche, you know, well, maybe about the last 10, 12 or so years, Rinpoche would give out cuddly toys, you know. And I think this one really expresses Rinpoche very well, living with bodhicitta. Rinpoche, for those of us who knew Rinpoche well, he was the epitome. I mean, he really was like the perfect example of bodhicitta. And Rinpoche would give out these, you know, toys with all these kinds of sayings on it. And he's at Copan during COVID, or even all the monks, you know, they would get little toys and things like that as well. So it's just, you know, all this just to sort of recognize whatever enjoyment, whatever we learn, feel, experience out of this, whether it's a slideshow or Dharma practice or life, you know, meeting the Dharma, being connected with these centers, it's all coming from Rinpoche's bodhicitta, you know, and very much when you go to Lawudo, what you feel is when you go into the cave, it's like all this came from Rinpoche's practice in his previous life. You know, a lot of it, you know, when we think about the Lawudo Lama's life, you know, that really touches me to think when I'm in the cave, you know, that, you know, who Rinpoche was this life also came from the stream of consciousness of his previous life and all those years meditating and dedicating. One thing that Rinpoche mentioned to his another close friend that's mentioned in the biography is that he said that as a Lawudo Lama, in his life as a Lawudo Lama, he shared that in this life I didn't do extensive works for others because he spent a lot of his time in retreat and practice, but he said I made a lot of dedications to benefit in my next life. And it's like, wow, you know. So it's like this incredible example of the power of prayer, you know, the power of practice, and just this patience and perseverance to give up like a huge amount and a lot of hardship in his previous life. I mean, the cave wouldn't have looked like how it looks now in Rinpoche's previous life. It would have been much simpler. And so a lot of hardship and also physical sickness and many hardships Rinpoche went through this and past life and this life. And then all the benefit Rinpoche gave, you know, that's the power of prayer, the power of practice. So I just find it like, it's very touching and moving, you know, to think about it like that. And of course, Rinpoche also benefited animals extensively. You know, and at Copan, another thing something else you can visit at Copan is there's an animal sanctuary there, which has many animals that Rinpoche liberated, you know, hundreds of goats and other types of animals from the danger of death. So they're housed and looked after at the sanctuary there. And these stupas have been built also, so they get circumambulated regularly. They get mantras recited to them regularly. And just to finish, you know, it's just again this kind of example. Rinpoche came from this in this life to becoming this great holy, you know, great holy master. You know, so it's, and again, it's kind of comes from, again, all these kind of prayers as being the Lawudo Lama in the previous life. So it's a lot, can draw a lot of inspiration for that, a lot of faith that, you know, even our prayers might not look like they're doing much this life, but they increase and move on to future lives, you know, and can be really, really beneficial. And a lot of the information, you know, that we get is coming from this wonderful book, the Lawudo Lama, that was written by one nun, Jamyang Wangmo, who spent many, many years up in the Khumbu region, meditating, doing retreat, finding out about the history of the Lawudo Lama and the region. So much of that is explained in this wonderful book. And I wanted to thank Venerable Sarah, Thresher, and Tenzin Michael and Steve, because they offered many of the photos that I shared here. So just some thanks there. I wrapped it up a little bit quickly there, but I'm aware that we're on a time. Does anyone have any questions or comments, something they want to share? Nothing? You have to put your, Stella, it looks like you're saying something, but you'll need to unmute.
Thank you for sharing all those beautiful pictures. It really, it's unbelievable that they were able to get those pictures, you know, because I think that that's later on in life when they were able to build all those things. But before, when in the early days, the old Lawudo Lama, I mean, it was quite rough and rugged to get up there. Even when I was there in 2005 in Copan, I think it was really hard to get up there.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, but it's become a bit easier now. You know, they're continually developing the paths, and, you know, you can even get up there on helicopter quite a lot of the way now, although that might be changing because they're having too many accidents with helicopters. But there's ways to get up there more easily and quickly. I mean, it's still quite a trail, but it's wonderful if you can do the walk, of course, you know. But yeah, no, it's very precious. It's incredible to be able to go up there. I'm sure all of us would love to go. Is there anyone who wouldn't want to go? You know what I mean? Unless we're a bit fearful of the walk or the bridges, but I mean, you know, or the flight.
Right.
I mean, I don't think there's anybody who wouldn't want to experience that. I mean, even my sister, she was like, when I put the pictures on Facebook, she's like, she's not Buddhist, but she's like, I just want to go there, you know?
Yeah.
It's just stunning, you know. Anyone else want to share anything? Or a question or? No, we're good. Well, what I would like to do, if you're okay with the next few minutes, and of course, if you need to go, this is really just a dedication. And is anyone here, I just wanted to ask, does anyone here feel inspired that they might even be able to go? I mean, I'm sure we're all inspired, would like to go. Does anyone feel they might be able to go at some point? Or we're all feeling like we're too old now or too...
I want to thank you for this, Angie, and I still feel totally like I could go. I'm 71, but I've backpacked my whole life. I think that if I got in shape again right before that, I would be totally possible. There's many people that you can, you know, benefit yourself and others by just having that experience. And anyway.
I think you can go as well, Julie. I was waiting on you to say that.
Well, I was trying to get unmuted here to thank you and to say that, but thank you for those beautiful pictures and that really, I've read, I don't know if it was Sarah, but I've read a couple long stories about some other people like Sarah Thresher or different people doing pilgrimages up there. And at one point Mary and Sue and I were going to go with Mary and Harry, and it didn't happen, but Sue was fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah, that's right. Yep, yeah. Morrigan, you have your hand up.
I was just saying that I'm definitely going to go.
Good. Yeah, let's whoever thinks that's manageable, let's make the aspiration. Let's dedicate by virtue of listening and feeling inspired, you know, whatever positive feelings come up that you're really able to go, you know, and I hope you can go. Maybe we can even go together some point, you know.
I would like to go, but take my time more instead of going, like really because there's so many beautiful places on the way too.
Well, you
And
can do that, Sue, as well. It depends if you go in a
yeah,
small group or a bigger group and what the schedule is. But I
right.
think,
Or maybe
you know,
go
if you're
earlier than the
older,
group.
you should go
Go-
slower.
Go earlier than the group and then meet at a certain, maybe meet at Namche Bazaar, but take the time going
Yeah.
up. I could
There's
see
no,
that.
you can take as long as you want, as long as you've got someone else that you're going with and you know what you're doing. And the road's quite straightforward, really. It's a straightforward path, you know. So, yeah, I hope that, was it Alexia? And was it Alexia says you'd like to go as well? I mean, I'm sure everyone would like to go, but anyway, let's so what dedicate that, you know, through virtue of this, that as many as possible you're able to go if you're the main thing is it's physically, you know, and of course it's financially not cheap either. You know, you have to get to Nepal, you need to then get up to Lawudo. It does cost a bit of money to do these things, you know. I mean, that was one of the reasons for a long time there was no way I was able to go, you know. But I've been quite fortunate to go now 2 times. So I think if anybody feels, because I know we're a little bit behind time, if anybody feels they need to go, that's fine. What I wanted to do is, sorry, I know that Elise, you asked me about talking about the water bowls, but maybe we can do that next week. It might fit better with the karma and purification classes. But what I wanted to finish as a dedication is just share with you. This came out recently. It's a video that the Sherpa villagers made for Rinpoche after I mentioned it in the slideshow, after Rinpoche rebuilt their stupa in such a sort of beautiful, glorious way. They were so grateful that they composed a song for him. And it was a song of appreciation, but now that Rinpoche's passed, they've changed it into an appreciation plus a song for his swift return. So it's like 5-6 minutes of, has anyone seen it yet? Because it's come out recently on the,
Yeah,
no, I
I've seen
wonder. Well, it takes 6 minutes, but there's some translation at the bottom of what they're singing. But this is very typical Sherpa music, and I think Rinpoche would have loved this because Rinpoche loved, you know, his own cultural Sherpa music. And so this is this appreciation song, and it's also we can just dedicate, you know, due to these merits, you know, listening and rejoicing in Rinpoche's previous lives, this life, you know, and so much that was done at Lawudo, you know, for us to be able to benefit, not just Lawudo, but in the FPMT and the whole organisation that Rinpoche did, you know, for us rejoicing in that and just thinking about that. May Rinpoche, you know, return very swiftly. And also with this as a dedication as well. So we'll just see if I can pull this one up as well.
It's in the Lama Yeshe Wisdom Archive.
Oh, I think it's this one. Let me see. Share. No, it's not that one. I wonder if I have. It's not that. Okay, here we go. Right. So not this one. I just need to change over. Okay. Okay. Can you hear it?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Just making sure the sound's on. Oh.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
Thank you, Venerable Angie.
yeah.
Very,
Yeah.
it was beautiful, but also very touching.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, yeah. I found it very sweet, you know, and also it's beautifully done as well. You get some more images of the valley there in Copan, and yeah, it's very sweet. And also Rimshi it's very much Rimshi's style, you know. He would really enjoyed that for sure. So anyway, thank you so much for joining. And
Thank
next
you.
next week we have a karma. Yeah, anyway, karma purification. Like that next week, if you're able to join. Otherwise, hope you have a nice week, and
Thank you, Venerable.
see you all. Thank you. Good night.
Thank
Good
you
night.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank
Have a
you.
really, really
Bye.
wonderful
Thank you.
time.
Thank you.
Beautiful.